Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Fiction Game. I'm your host, as always, Jack, and with me today are my players. Hayden playing the role of Alberth, Tom playing the role of Greyson, Miles playing the role of William, and Sam playing the role of Merigold. Last time we left off, which was about a month ago in real time, so we're going to do a recap because we left off right in the middle of the action. Last session, you guys got a bunch of sweet new powers. Marigold had his new spells from Arthias, his magely patron, and he also perused the Learned Layabout library, where he learned a great deal of information that the rest of the party still doesn't know. It's all in secret bullet points in a private Discord channel, so that only Sam has that information that Marigold knows. Secrets being important to mages. Alberth gained a new servitor ability through his bond with an angel patron. Greyson received a letter from the secret demon hunting organization he's a member of, the Hand of the North, saying that it was time to start building his pseudo celebrity status as a solo demon hunter, so that it wouldn't raise any questions about why he's wildly competent and knowledgeable about demon hunting in particular. Because if it doesn't seem like he's doing it himself, people are going to start to ask where all of that training and knowledge is coming from. He also found a puppy. By which I mean a wolf cub that our druid then discovered might be a druid. And finally, William gained a new Blood Mage ability, and it received some correspondence from his cousin, Jem, also Lycian-blooded, of course. And accompanying that letter was a ring, infused, sort of enchanted with the wild boon of metamorphosis, which allows him, or anyone who wears the ring, to become a bear. After all of this leveling up, powering up, there was a lot of experimenting with the new powers, because there's a lot of ways in which they interact. And then ultimately the party went to meet with the Queen, to regroup with a group of powerful demon hunting inheritors who were coming from the Red Reach on the edge of the kingdom of Telmeri to help with a demon hunt. They have found this demon before, but it proved maybe not even too powerful to hunt down, but too slippery, as it fled away through the forest from them. So they're calling in the cavalry, calling in the big guns. But the big guns didn't show up for a while. In fact, they didn't show up for long enough that eventually Queen Resenda sent this party out to meet the inheritors. Of course, they didn't meet them. They found them. On the road near Ernhold, the capital of the Undery fiefdom, which some of our players have been to before, they found the heads of the four inheritors who they were sent to meet on pikes, next to a pile of stacked human and horse corpses, still in their gleaming silver-lined inheritor armor. Without any time to investigate or find out how this could have happened, very quickly over the hill, an armed force led by Baron Tieflehen charged over, and Baron Tieflehen, a foil or even maybe primary antagonist of our first campaign, discovered our heroes and their companions, Yasika, Elway, and Lion, are with you, standing over these, the corpses of these inheritors. And of course, Baron Tieflehen has accused you of killing them. What your motive is supposed to be, it's unclear, but because you are in his fiefdom, he is justice. He is the long arm of the law. I'm afraid there's even more backstory relevant than this, so bear with me as I tell you about Mersala. You'll see why she's relevant in just a moment. Mersala was a child of a major house in pre-revolution Venel. There was the recent revolution in Val. It was a coup. It's a whole thing. She was unusually skilled with a
Is that
blade.
where I'm from? Sorry, I just can't remember the name of my kingdom. It was
Oh,
Venel, wasn't it?
um, you're right. That's supposed to say Vuitton. That's a great catch. You're from Venel. Mersala is from Vuitton. That's where there was a revolution. There have not been any revolutions in your kingdom. I'm glad you caught that. I shouldn't. Yeah, it's the classic fantasy rule. Don't give anything the first starting initial, because you will just get them all confused. Vuitton. Unusually skilled with a blade and always a step ahead in her classes, Mersala was expected to marry a minor prince by the name of Durnley. It was a poorly kept secret she had no fondness for the young man and that her interests lay elsewhere. Ultimately, she chose duty over love, but the night before the wedding, Durnley's family accused her of impropriety, citing a dalliance with a certain chambermaid of low noble standing. It's worth noting two things. First, that these accusations were false, fabricated wholesale by Durnley's cunning family in order to discredit Mersala's house and usurp their power. Second, the common folk of Vuitton, and of most kingdoms in fact, have a mostly indifferent approach towards relationships between two women or two men, but the nobility have always had more uses for idle hatred than the peasantry, and so such biases remain a curious trait of the upper crust. After facing such crushing betrayal at the hands of her fiancé's family, Mersala lost all political power, and was ultimately declared a bastard by her scheming father to separate her infamy from the family name. Seeking justice, she went on to become a caster, and in the long-standing tradition of the inheritor order, she chose a new name, Yasika. She remains a skilled warrior, and a powerful caster, and now a dear friend to several of our players, and an acquaintance to two, if we're being honest. She now, having gone through this ordeal at a young age, to this day, Yasika bears a special hatred for false accusations. And so, when Baron Tieflehen rides down this hill and accuses your party of having murdered these people, some of whom are Yasika's dear friends and companions in the crusade against Hell's invasion, Yasika invokes one of the most iconic inheritor powers, which, as of yet, we haven't been able to see invoked. Yasika invokes something called a solar accusation. Stepping off her horse and drawing her sword, which causes a number of the armed attendants of the Baron to do the same, including, actually, the Baron's right-hand advisor, who you've all met before, and who is also an inheritor. Just worth mentioning. She is here as well. But Yasika draws a sword, points it at the Baron, and in a booming, unnatural voice that you can tell is not Yasika's own, she is letting a higher power, presumably one of those of the sun, speak through her. She accuses Baron Tieflehen. You had these inheritors murdered, she says, echoing across the hills, her voice is, and are framing us for your crime. The nature of a solar accusation is meant to incapacitate people who have done something terrible. You can only accuse someone of doing something that breaks one of the core tenets of those of the Sun's sort of moral philosophy. It's very strictly encoded, and wording is very important with these kinds of things. If they are guilty of what you've accused them of, they essentially become unable to lift items or move themselves very fast. They enter a very sluggish state where it's very easy to incapacitate them. But the accusation has to be true, and the accusation has to be for something that is like truly heinous according to the very strictly encoded laws set forth by the Solar Order. Unfortunately, something about her accusation must have been wrong, because immediately after saying those exact words, "You had these inheritors murdered and are framing us for your crime," she falls unconscious. See, that's what happens when the solar accusation is wrong.
Oh.
And glancing around at all of you, Baron Tieflehen, a wide grin spreads across his face. He looks to his...
I'm curious why it's wrong. So can I hit him with a compel indiscretion to
Oh,
see what
yes,
he...
you can. Um, yeah. You've got all these like ways to modify your spells. Are you just casting a plain old vanilla compel indiscretion? And do remember, you've learned how to kind of tune it up or down if it's so you don't like mind blast innocent people. Are you just full blast but no modifications right now?
Full blast, but no modifications. And that because, yeah, I don't want to modify it because that'll make the cooldown really long, and I'd like to be able to use it again in a few minutes.
Mm. You cast this spell, and as you do so, the Baron's head whips towards you, remembering perhaps an encounter you had in the first campaign in which you caused him to say some pretty embarrassing things in front of in front of a gathered audience, and ended up kind of blowing up his spot a little bit. His head whips up towards you, and silently his grin spreads further across his face. He says nothing. Now, it's worth noting, there are a number of people who have exercised psychic protections. In fact, one of these was Baron Tiefleyan himself. There was a certain resistance that you had to roll to overcome when you were when back before you had sort of supercharged this particular skill. You don't have to make that roll now. It doesn't feel like there's resistance at all. In fact, it feels like the spell worked and the cooldown is active. Like the spell has been expended. It just didn't hit him. It doesn't seem to be affecting him in any way, and he makes piercing eye contact with you as he calls for his right hand. He says, "Muzzle," and his right hand like arches an eyebrow. Her visor is up. She clearly does not like the term of endearment that he's chosen for her. He says, "Arrest them. It's we should. It's time for them to face the Baron's justice." And Lee Moss, his right hand man, or well, right hand woman in this case, looks at him like something sketchy's going on. Clearly, now Yasuka is probably the only inheritor a number of you have met, but you get the feeling they're all sworn to uphold like the same code, and if they don't, then they're not really inheritors anymore. You're not sure if there's many like defrauding their patrons and not really pursuing justice. You're not sure like what the requirements are, but she's clearly not happy with what he's doing, and she turns to your party and says, "Well, what do you all have to say for yourselves? What happened here? Who will step forward?"
We just showed up. We just got here.
Just showed up.
Yeah, the Baron's justice would not be the justice of the Sun because we're innocent of this crime. These were our friends, and we were here to escort them safely back to the kingdom to talk to the Queen.
This inheritor nods slowly. She looks around. She narrows her eyes at the Baron. It's unclear why the Baron would have chosen this woman as his right-hand advisor. She's clearly, like, immediately sussed towards him. She doesn't like what he's got going on. We didn't really dive into this when you guys came through Earnhold in season 1, or campaign 1 rather. But Lady Mossely nods and then turns towards your party. She says, "I think I agree, actually." And the Baron looks at her. "What?" And the Baron says, these are my lands. They face my justice. This crime happened in Undery." And Lady Mossely, completely ignoring him, has gotten off her horse, walks up to you all, and introduces herself. She says, "I'm Lady Mossely. I'm the right hand to Baron Tiefleyan here. But I serve the king. And what it sounds like to me is that you think that you should face the king's justice and not this guy. Does that sound right?"
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
In terms of jurisdiction, this technically, you're in Undery, so you would have to face the Baron's justice. Are you citizens of the realm? Are you all from here? What's the situation? Because there are conditions by which you should face the king's justice and not his. Where are you from? Why are you visiting Undery?
Player to DM here. We are like technically on a royal quest currently, aren't we?
Oh yeah, you have a sealed writ like confirming this with the royal seal. You guys are representatives of the queen right now.
Let's
Yeah.
hope that out.
Baron Tieflayan immediately looks disgusted and like throws his head up. You've gotta be. And
Yeah, we currently have an alibi from the queen herself, who should be able to clear up any discrepancies in the timeline here. That should show that we truly just arrived.
This makes Lady Mossily smile, and she says, "Can I see the writ?" She takes it. She observes the seal. She looks at the writ. She recloses it back up and like binds up the scroll with that little red like ribbon that goes around it. She turns to the Baron and says, "It's legit. This entitles them to face the king's justice rather than yours." Baron Tieflayan says, "Fine then. Let's escort these criminals and murderers to the capital. We were headed there anyways." Lady Mossily says, "All right, fine by me, but I'm not putting them in restraints." And so, unless you guys object or wanna try and break free, they start to lead you back to the capital. What was your question?
We have
check to see why he was unaffected by my spell.
Yeah. So,
Is there some sort of like by proxy, like instead of sending spells, like receiving spells by proxy?
Oh.
or worse, any item that can store and use spells later, and he just got a big old captured spell.
He did the villager like bucket.
Yeah.
Just-
Also, like we're currently, like, us as a team, we're currently like actively hunting a demon. Like leaving and going back to where we came from, 100% isn't part of the objective right now, right?
That's true.
We also, because remember, I like made the Pater Olman say a bunch of stuff in the old religious language.
Yes.
And we were bringing the inheritors back to confirm that he is in fact guilty of trying to carry out this like theocratic coup.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, and I was just about to say,
justice seems inconvenient right now.
yeah, it's definitely a bad time for it, especially because you'd be leaving the scene of the crime very close to Baron Tieflayan's like center of control. So if there's a way he has to like modify the crime scene or to like cover it up or to handle it internally in some way that means he won't get in trouble for it, then you might not be comfortable leaving this crime scene, especially because Yasuko will be unconscious, slung over a horse, and then led to the capital. So,
can I say then, if it's okay, we'd be happy to go with you to receive the king's justice, just as soon as we've had to have a chance as emissaries of the queen to investigate the crime scene to determine who really did kill our friends here.
That's a strong point. And it sounds like there's a lot of information that you guys are missing and would like to know what you can glean from the situation. And so I think reasonably there's a role that each of you can make. Merigold, you are a mage. You've been studying at the high halls of the academy in the capital for months now. If anyone can know why he was suddenly exempted from this spell, it's you. Make a roll to see what knowledge you can glean, and because of your vast resources in this matter, roll it with advantage. Alberth.
Okay. Do we have a tavern tabletop code?
Oh,
going?
right.
Should I
Yeah,
just-
we should do that because it works a little better than Discord. How about just the letter T, lowercase? That'll work.
Cool.
Excellent.
Flat D20?
With advantage, yes.
Nice. With advantage. 11.
Yeah, we'll get all the rolls on the table, and then I'll tell you the pool of information that you glean. Alberth, your roll is next. Having had your eyesight modified by you drank ichor a while ago, barely lived, but your eyesight was heavily modified. That combined with you being a crack shot with the gun, you are the most eagle-eyed of the party. You can make a roll with advantage to see what you can see physically here.
17.
Greyson, you are the most skilled manipulator and liar of this party. I'm gonna let you make a roll. This one, I think, not with advantage, unless you think there's some kind of magical bonus that makes sense for you to receive on this roll, to see if you can tell what the Baron is lying about, or what anyone here is trying to deceive other people into believing. And William, since you were the first person to step forward and speak on behalf of the party, I'm gonna have you make the charisma roll that is that is like, can we buy some time to analyze this scene? You have the Hearthlight aura, you have Red Purpose charm, you have so many charisma bonuses. You can certainly make this roll with advantage.
Let's go.
So, starting from the top down, Merigold's roll with advantage. The higher was 11. I think it's reasonable for you to have gleaned, for you to have a couple theories, especially since the main way you get stuff done, the main way Merigold influences the plot and pursues his goals is through this extremely specialized skill. This spell in particular, compel indiscretion. I think it's reasonable to believe that Merigold uses this spell often enough to have spent a good deal of time considering, if I only use this hammer, what's not going to be a nail? Like, what's going to be resistant to this effect? You have a couple of theories. First of all, psychic protection, but that seems like the least likely, because you've experienced Baron Tiefley's psychic protections before. They aren't invulnerability, they are force against force. Proxy spells are actually an excellent idea. If you could cast a proxy spell on someone else to make them receive like spells instead of you, it seems like an incredibly powerful spell, but it absolutely makes sense under like mage conditions. Based on other proxy spells you know about, that seems like it could definitely be an option. And if that's what's going on, you have a theory of how you could overcome it. Because if all of the spells are being sent through, if you spend any spell that incapacitates the person on the other end of this psychic connection, of this proxy connection, or like makes them break the bond in any way, then it will open Baron Tieflehen to psychic attack from you via compel indiscretion. Your best idea right now, have Alberth use compel adrenaline to have the other person panic or cower, and hopefully in some way you know that proxy spells are dependent on the active consent of the person who is their target. So if you could cause them to panic, maybe you could lower his defenses and then you could strike. You'll have to find a way to communicate this non-verbally to your friend Alberth. And your third idea is something about Bane auras or Bane metals, that you've learned that like magic responds in a certain way to certain metals and to certain substances. But you know that people aren't immune to mage spells if they're drunk. It would be hard to use a proxy spell to route something through them if they're drunk, but even then, there are ways to overcome that.
Who's opposite the Cuningdom on like the table of the 6?
Rayfell, sorcerers, which includes bards. You've met one bard with a flute that made people fly and move fast. Yeah.
And what's their Bainara? Do I know?
You don't know, I believe.
Okay.
In fact, I don't know if you know your own Bane metal either. But yeah, just like yeah. So protection through one of those substances could be the case. A proxy spell could be the case. You communicate it to Alberth. Alberth, based on your role, you're also going to have something to communicate non-verbally to Merigold, because with that advantage roll, you got a 17. And your keen, blessed, Ichor-enforced eyesight pick out something so subtle. You might have even seen something like this before when you look at William, noticing his brass circlet that just comes to right about here. It's not a complete circlet. It is hidden within his hair, but it stops his halo, his broken halo, from manifesting, which I believe is not a secret anymore. You guys discussed that when he became a bear over and over
Correct.
again. Yes. You notice a circlet lining the head of Baron Tieflehen. You do not recognize what metal it's made of. Could he... It's not brass, so it's unlikely that he's disguising Lycian blood, and as far as the histories are concerned, there is no known part-blooded descendant of anyone but Lycians and humans. You don't think there's any other kind of hybrid. So the idea that he's hiding some kind of aura? Maybe. Or maybe there's some other use for a circlet like that. Greyson rolled a 1. He does not determine anything about what people are lying about or what they're plotting or how they're deceiving you. Grayson's got nothing on this guy. And finally, William rolled a 17, makes a very compelling case. Compelling enough that it would be weird for Baron Tieflehen to steamroll you and be like, no, you don't get to look at this evidence because I said so, we're leaving. It would be a stretch for him to do that, and so he looks at at his right-hand counselor and at you and says, fine, but we'll have to leave soon to make the capital by nightfall. And then he pouts on his horse. So, you guys have a moment to investigate the crime scene, or to try and wake up Yasuka, or you've bought some time to stay here instead of being hauled off to the capital. How do you start? What are you looking for as you examine this this scene of carnage?
Do they seem to be killed in any specific way, using blades? Were they bludgeoned? Were they burned? Anything that would tell a weapon or some sort of way like that?
Do any of you have medical experience?
I kind of would.
You,
Maybe.
being a blood mage, you're familiar with the formation of wounds, for sure. I'm going to say that amounts to, I'm going to call it a +1. Anyone think that that their backstory would justify a higher bonus than that? I think Merigold probably has, like, some medical studies just based off of the absolute breadth of
He's just a learning guy.
That just kind of a flat intelligence bonus, essentially.
My first thought was, you said there were heads on spikes, right?
There are, yes.
Are they still bleeding? Like, is it, like, can I determine maybe how long it's been based on the state of the bodies?
That's very smart. So I'm just going to tell you without it having to be a roll. There is definitely some blood that ran down from these heads onto these pikes, but there's not so much that it seems like it happened, like, right after death. It seems like these heads were put on these pikes after the bodies had lost a significant amount of blood. So this was done not as part of the killing, but as part of the presentation that you're witnessing now.
And does all the blood seem dried already?
Yeah.
The stuff running down the pike, not so much, but in fact, make me that roll. You got the +1 from your experience with wounds, William, and then
7 after the bonus.
yes. You're not sure how long it takes human blood to dry, because we've established most of the wounds you create are your own for gathering blood magic, or the like sanguine mana, because you have great regenerative capabilities. But yours is kind of a blood ichor hybrid. It's like very low ichor content. You'd need like a extensive alchemical equipment to like get any kind of pure ichor out of it. It's not magically significant unless you go to an alchemist. That's the base that I'm trying to cover here.
Got it.
But you aren't sure how long ago they would have had to die for the blood to be like the level of dryness that it is. What you are able to determine, because it's pretty cursory just looking at it, after removing some of their armor, you can see that they are extensively bruised. Most likely they were attacked with like bludgeoning weapons to do the majority of the damage that took them down.
Can you figure out the name of any of them, like just a specific name of any of these victims?
Yasuka knows the names of all 4.
Okay. Do I have a crystal ball?
You do. So when you got this scry spell, I think it's reasonable to assume that the big ones that like mages in towers use are crazy expensive, like Small Kingdom crazy. I mean, there aren't Small Kingdoms anymore because they were all kind of united by a number of ruling classes, and so now there are only 6. But Small Fortune expensive. And so Merigold went to, if this seems reasonable for you, like a glassmith and got like a pocket one that you can carry around. It's basically a thick
Nice.
marble.
Okay. I'll pick one of these guys at random, speak into the crystal ball, and I'm going to use Scry to say, I want to see, what's one of their names, I guess, at random?
Ryder
The wording's
Pyric.
important. Pyric. What's his first name? Sorry?
Oh,
Ryder
his
Pyric.
title is Ryder.
Okay. I'm going to say, show me the being who killed Ryder Pyric.
Now, this is first of all, before you get through the ritual at all, Baron Tieflane goes, hey, no rituals. Stop casting powerful spells. You're supposed to be analyzing.
100%. I don't remember saying no rituals as part of our agreement to let us stay and investigate.
You're afraid your pretty face is going to appear in my marble. Is that what it is?
If that were true, your friend wouldn't have passed out.
Fair enough. Then surely you have no reason for us to not carry out this ritual to find the killer.
What spell are you casting? You just started a ritual.
I'm scrying.
Oh.
I'm a mage. I scry.
Well, fine then. And he kind of looks at his right hand, and she goes, "Yeah, that's a safe thing. He can do that." And it's fine. Scry. And so yeah, you carry out this ritual. The marble remains foggy. And I'm not having you make a roll because there's a particular you're asking an inanimate object to observe intent. And so blame, like murdered, or like who killed, it seems a little confused, and you see brief glimpses of like the part of the armor that dented in to cause the most lethal wound, and like the head on the pike that is Ryder Pyric himself, because he like rode the horse there to, so it clearly has trouble being like, fault? Whose fault is it that, oh no. And so you get brief glimpses of all of these things. I am gonna have you make a roll because it's confused, but it is showing you flash. It's trying for you, and so make a roll to see if you can like
And what's the
surmise
cooldown on this?
anything from
Try another. I got a 7. Yeah.
Scry days. Yeah. Scry is kind of
Days?
ritual level instead of spell level. So yeah. You're a pretty powerful mage though, and cooldown is kind of relative to that, and it's not like you enhanced it at all, so it might be back within like 24 hours. Let me bring up the description for the spell in particular in case it's listed. Not William.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I'll be right back while you're looking this up.
Yeah.
This is also my favorite interpretation of scrying that I've ever seen.
Thank you.
So this
I've
is awesome.
never seen it in another tabletop role-playing game. I've only seen it in Magic the Gathering. And so I only know it as a mechanic, but I was like, oh, just looking for something in a crystal ball? That makes sense to me. So yeah. Sorry, I switched tabs. Did you make that roll? Was that the 7?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't surmise anything, but it looks like the wound that could be considered the most lethal was something that dented in the lower part of Ryder Pyrex armor. Like, not the chest plate, but something that made his... Do you guys happen to know... All the parts of armor have very specific names. Do you happen to know the abs part, the name for that? I don't know it. So, the abs
you're
part.
beyond me now.
Merigold probably doesn't know it either. So the abs part got dented inward, and it looks like that caused maybe some internal bleeding or like internal injuries. It looks like that was the most lethal wound, but judging from the absolute coverage of bruises all over his body, there were a lot of wounds that went into making this happen.
Okay, I have one last idea, and then I'm out of ideas. Is my compel and discretion done with cooldown yet? I remember it was
Yes.
pretty quick. when I
It's
used it
a
on-
couple seconds now, unless you enhance it in some way.
Okay. Can I? My goal is to get one of Baron's soldiers to come over and help me roll the body over to investigate. Like, I need to see like if there's any more bruising on his back. But I'm gonna try to use a toned down compel and discretion to see if he knows anything. Like, I'm gonna like try and like be conversational. Like, whew, someone gave these guys a really hard time. Any ideas on what happened? I guess, and then I'll boom hit him with it. But like the subtle one, so it's not obvious.
Right on.
I'm gonna like one of the lower looking soldiers so that it's not like an officer or anything like that.
That was my question. Is there are several ranks of soldiers here, and a little bit of observation can show you they're wearing like symbols of their rank. Status is a very important thing to display in Undery in particular, in this little corner of Telmeri. So yeah, you grab one of the lower level peons, wave him over to help you with some task about these bodies. The Baron seems more or less fine with this. Doesn't think you're like planning anything, but yeah, roll just like we've done in the past. Roll to see how well you control your compel and discretion. You definitely cast it, and it definitely affects him. Let's see if you manage to not turn him into paste.
8.
An 8. I'm gonna say you overshoot the power just a little bit, and he does start loudly talking about his bathroom habits and and an affair he's thinking of considering. He's thinking of starting rather. It's very informative, and a number of soldiers look at each other, like bump each other with elbows. Someone pays out what appears to be a bet. What information are you hoping to glean from this guy specifically?
Anything suspicious that he might know or be trying to hide about the true nature of the situation.
Right on. Yeah, you ask like a number of leading questions, and the Baron looks over like kind of concerned, like feels like magic. Is this magic? It's definitely magic, right? But yeah, this this guy, like late teens or early 20s, really young, like obviously conscripted into this group, really armor that clearly wasn't like built to his specifications and that kind of thing, just starts like waxing philosophical. But as soon as you start to ask like leading questions about the Baron and what he might be planning and like this situation, he starts talking about how the Baron has been locking himself in his rooms at on hours, and has sent representatives to do all of his work, and Muzzle is really concerned about him, and Lady Mossley like rolls her eyes at the name once again. And he talks about like
whoa, I don't need to know, like, I'm not trying to like dig any information on the Baron here right now. Like, calm down, soldier. Like,
of course. It's just that, and he keeps talking, and the Baron has like nudged one of his officers who's starting to walk over to like grab this guy's collar and drag him back. And he starts talking about like, is the metallurgists have been working all hours trying to create something that he's been looking for, and he keeps stopping people to find out if they're casters. He's really concerned. I'm worried that we're gonna start to be like Dulmer, and we're going to start like prosecuting people for being casters, and then he cuts off as the back of his armored pauldron. That's not right. Just grabbed, and he's dragged away by a clearly high-ranking guy with like big old glaive, or halberd is probably more accurate to the weaponry of the area. But by that time, it's already Say again?
I'm just gonna start like taking swigs from my flasks so they don't think I'm using magic. Put them on a false security for now.
Now, is the flask full of, like, does it not have alcohol, or have you already cast proxy spell casting on one of your companions?
Yeah, it's on Miles.
Yeah, it was on me before.
Wanted to make sure it wasn't Yasuka, because that would be a pretty bad news.
Yeah.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, the armored official who drags the guy away kind of like throws him to the ground, and the guy's still talking, but is now like visibly confused. Like earlier it was kind of normal that he was talking, but now he can't stop talking, and he's like looking around concerned, and just like covers his mouth and keeps just like saying like very, just going into his sex life in extreme detail, and like looking around kind of scared. And the Baron just gives you a dry look and says, "Are you done torturing my men? Can we go to the capital now?"
It was a simple physical task to flip the body over. I don't see if I can play it off. I don't know.
He doesn't believe you, but he doesn't make a stink out of it or anything, because he can't like prove that you cast a spell on him or anything. Yeah, anything else? Anything anyone else is doing in this downtime that you've bought yourself to kind of analyze the scene, do what you can before being brought back to the capital?
No, Grayson is not used to being in the right when accused of a crime, so he's a little unsure of what he's supposed to be doing at this juncture.
That's fair. And yeah, and
I would like to argue.
Yeah.
Sorry, if you're doing something with Grayson, go ahead.
No, you're good.
Okay, I wanted to make an argument. Being the first one to step up, having good charisma roll from earlier, even if I need to pump a little bit of saving mana into it, I'd like to make the argument that the whole group doesn't necessarily need to trump back to the capital. We're here on business with the Queen. We have a task at hand. Is there a way that we could send a representative of the group on the rest of the group's behalf in order to keep both parties' intentions in mind? One, trying to make sure that justice is enacted on a obviously heinous crime. The other, trying to work on behalf of the Queen and stop a demon.
The Baron mutters, "Sounds like a plan to escape to me." And Lady Mossley holds up a hand like, "Okay, calm down. Baron, and turns to you and says, "Look, the quest that you were sent out on, is it urgent? It has to be done today?"
There's a demon loose.
Oh. Well, that
These guys are
explains
gonna
all
help
the
us with that.
inheritors. Yeah, it does. How long ago did you discover this demon?
How long has it been?
It's been
3
a couple
weeks.
weeks, I think.
3 weeks. Yeah.
Okay, we're headed back to the capital. She says, "Yeah, I can't justify splitting the group up into less manageable fragment groups. When we can make it back to the king by nightfall, you can sleep, you can get at it in the morning if you're found innocent, and I'm sure you will be."
Did they lock
Yeah.
up Peter Ullman like as a provisionary? Like, is he just loose?
Yeah, he's loose. He's still the left hand of the queen.
Okay.
All right.
All right. I actually have something Grayson is gonna do. Actually, Grayson's gonna he's this discussion about like going back to the capital and stuff. He's gonna realize like, okay, we're innocent here, so I don't have to like think about lying my way out or anything. And he's gonna go look at the bodies because I feel like Grayson sort of has been in several like dangerous occupations and is familiar with death and probably wounds of some kind, especially with the Hand of the North, but as well as like the Thieves Guild from before. And he's gonna sort of see what he can find on the bodies and stuff, like start doing a biopsy right there or something like that.
That makes a lot of sense. Make me a roll. Actually, for reasons I won't reveal unless you roll particularly well, roll with advantage, because of a certain part of Grayson's backstory. I'm gonna say a 16 is high enough that Grayson recognizes wounds caused by demon tentacles through armor. But more concerningly than that, as you analyze the bruises on multiple of these victims, you recognize 2 lashing patterns that couldn't have been created by the same size of tentacle. Now, demons can produce a wide variety of limbs, as we've seen in the past. They can have weird, like, jointed talon limbs and like, tentacles and, like, graspers. And even you've seen certain demons have, like, claw-like, like lobster or crab claw limbs. But by and large, the limbs that they create are the same size. Like if they create 2 tentacles, they're identical tentacles. You find distinct patterns that means some of these wounds were created by a demon who you would say has been like inhabiting its current body for no less than 30 years. And one that's been inhabiting its body for at least 75 years, and one that's even bigger than that. It is the biggest tentacle marking that you've seen ever. You're pretty sure these weren't just these 4 inheritors weren't just killed by a demon. They were killed by a roving band of demons, which is a way that you haven't really seen demons work together before. For the most part, they, like Abelkashad had mentioned to the party, their interactions with one another are spiteful and cutting, and they avoid cooperation as much as possible. This would be almost unprecedented in Grayson's experience for 3 of them of vastly different ages to be working together.
I wonder what motivated them to form a posse. It's weird.
Silver's anti-demon.
Silver is anti-demon.
Okay, we've got silver weapons, literally all of us.
Yep.
Can we just, before we leave, do a quick silver check? Just announce it to the group. Hey, since we're dealing with demons and all, can we just do a quick silver check for everybody in the group?
What does that mean exactly?
Like, does everyone have silver? Is that what you're asking for?
No, I want to either, like, press, small
Shit.
wounds, something along those lines.
Yeah, before you
All
explain
the
what you mean
guards-
by silver check, Lady Mossley does one of these, like, what are you talking about? She says, do you mean with like let me look up the name, let me get it right. Do you mean with like a Bane Finder?
Yeah. I'm not super familiar with it, so if that's the proper term, yes.
Yeah, I don't think we have one, but crazy you bring that up. They have them in the courts. Like, we have one in Earnhold that we can run back and get, or the king will have one at the court. It's so you can tell who is what type of caster, and like if there are any like otherworldly influences.
That seems incredibly convenient. Let's do that.
Before we
Okay.
head out,
Yeah, let's go to the cap.
I have an observation that might up the urgency a little bit on this mission. And then I'll explain a little bit about like the claw marks of different, or the tentacle marks of different sizes.
And
yeah,
Lady Mossley says, "Wow, yeah, that is a game-changing revelation for sure." And now that you've shown me, and she kind of gestures to the bodies, she's like, "I can see what you mean. That is a credible thing that you're saying. You're absolutely right. This quest has to be carried out, and as soon as possible. But as it pertains to this current situation of us bringing you to the capital to face the king's justice, you were all teaming up with these 4 to fight one demon, right? So it sounds to me like we should definitely go somewhere else and then contact the Solar Order to get more inheritors on board, because if you needed these 4 to tackle one demon, your quest is not happening today. Sounds like we need to go to the capital. Sounds like we're all on the same page.
If there's more demons. I think it'll actually be easier, and I can explain why. Last time we faced the demon, we were able to scare it off by forcing it to reveal secrets it did not want to reveal. And that was when the secrets would be revealed to people that could not understand what it was saying. If there are 3 spiteful demons who are tenuously held together by a weak alliance, and we force one of them to start gushing its secrets to the others, I believe that all of them will disband and leave as quickly as possible.
Lady Mossley is doing one of these like once every 3 minutes during this whole series of events. She's just constantly, what? And she listens to this. She goes, "Okay, that sounds like a great plan when you go on this quest. Later, not now. It's starting to feel like stalling. Let's move. Okay? We're all okay with this?" To be fair, that scrying took about 20 minutes. The ritual takes a while, so she's getting impatient. You guys have analyzed the bodies now. She goes, "This is great information. Let's tell it to the king. I'm friends with the king. You guys friends with the king? This is gonna go great." And yeah, unless you guys try to stage an escape or do anything particularly clever, you guys head to the capital. I am going to have you make one roll, because there's a large amount of time during which Greyson is alone with a couple of these bodies. And he starts to get the itch.
Oh boy.
These people are covered in silver. Silver armor, silver weaponry. They've got treasures. They've got items that, like rings and amulets and stuff. You're pretty sure some of this has to be magical. It's going to take an effort of willpower to not try to steal something from these bodies. Please make a roll to see if you keep it together.
Am I rolling at disadvantage?
You are rolling a flat roll. An 11.
Wait, can't we make the case that we should bring the bodies back to the capital, receive funeral rites or something?
Oh, we'll leave soldiers here to make sure that the scene isn't disturbed. The investigators will need it in the condition that it was left in. Yeah, we'll bring some artists out to sketch the scene so that we have like a depiction of it. And yeah, it's a whole process with something this involved. But and she kind of has a sidelong glance towards the Baron, and she says, "My men will stay to preserve the scene." and Baron Tieflane once again pouts on his sword. What is
this guy's deal?
Already passed the solar accusation, but okay. So, you guys head to the capital. Oh, and that 11, I'm gonna say. Actually, I'm gonna leave it up to you, Tom. There's a moment when you could absolutely pocket a ring. A ring is the smallest thing. The thing he could best get away with. Does Greyson pocket a ring?
Yeah, I feel like he can control himself from doing obvious things, but like the ring's just there. He'll throw it in his pocket.
Right on. Just like is always great news for a fantasy protagonist, Greyson walks away with a ring in his pocket. So
never goes badly.
Never. I mean, to be fair, actually, yeah, that Bilbo kind of crushed it. he just got it back and put it on his mantelpiece, and that was great. Anyways, yeah, it is a slightly slower journey.
I mean,
what?
I said your nephew had better look out.
True. He's gonna get his finger chomped off. We all know how this story ends. Yeah. It's a longer journey back to the capital than it was to here, with a much larger party. And they're, of course, in formation around you to make sure that now that you're all on horseback, you guys can't just go, okay, see. They've got, it's almost like being escorted, but by people who don't like you. And so you guys travel in this formation. It is just past nightfall when you arrive in the city, so several of your riders have lanterns up, and you guys clomp down the flagstone streets of the capital, which has become your home over the last little while, and so very familiar streets at this point. You guys clomp up eventually to the grand hall in front of the twin thrones of the king and queen of Tel Meri. When you guys enter the audience hall, it is largely empty. There's a handful of scribes in the pews, stuff, but it is too late at night for the king and queen to be receiving petitioners or visiting dignitaries or anything like that. You guys are, you're alone, and the Baron sends someone off to discuss with, whoever the king's people are who determine his schedule, and they figure out a whole thing. It's probably 15-20 minutes before eventually the king, looking a little bleary-eyed, even though it's kind of early to go to bed. It's kind of it's a time when little kids go to bed, but maybe he's just tired. He kind of rubs his eyes. He sits up on the throne and says, right, sorry, who among you is on trial? And the Baron steps forward and makes his formal accusation, which is that your party, including Yasuka, who is unconscious, and they brought her in on a handcart because she's in full armor. Your party, he's accusing you of having killed these 4 inheritors who were riding out to help you on your quest. And he explains that how he found you, and we don't have to rehash all of that because you were there. The king nods very seriously through all of this, and looks at your party and says, "Right. So do you have a barrister with you? Will one of you be representing yourselves, or do you need a barrister?"
I think William should represent us, probably.
Highest charisma is good. If you want someone to lie, Greyson, I think, has the highest cumulative charisma bonus. But in this case, you're actually innocent, so I think William has the highest charisma bonus for telling the truth.
All right, let's do it.
Right on. There are several
will I
buffs.
get, like, slandered for using magic to prove my innocence?
For boosting your charisma? No. There are no laws that say, like, it's perjury if you do magic to be more convincing.
All right, sick.
Yep. Overt shows might get you in a little bit of trouble. So whether Alberth uses something like Hearthlight RO, where he's like, oh, and that might get you in more trouble. But something like Red Purpose Charm has no visual indicators.
Gotcha. And I'm guessing with their ability to see if somebody's got otherworldly influences, is that something that would detect me, I suppose?
It would detect that you are a blood mage. You're not sure if it would detect that you are part Lycian, because the circlet really does a lot to hide what's going on with you.
Sweet.
So,
all right, yeah. So how does it proceed?
Yeah, the Baron lays out his accusations, and let's see. So yeah, the Baron, like I said, explains what happened when he found you, and then he starts positing like theories of like why you would kill these people who are coming to help you on this quest. And they include like they wanted to steal their sweet gear. And he doesn't say sweet gear. It's worth noting, you know how the Baron Tieflayan has like a really old-fashioned way of talking? He kind of talks like this, and if he wants to insult someone, he calls them a cur or a bastard. And very, very juxtaposed with someone like Vizier Kama, who, when she's talked to you in the past, has said things like, shit, yeah, or like very modern phrases. This is actually because people from like major cities develop their own sort of pseudo dialect, and so that's like a city accent versus like a kind of hick accent. If anyone's talking like they're a Stark from Game of Thrones, it's because they're just from the boonies. So, yeah, he outlines like they wanted to steal the demon hunting equipment and take the glory for themselves, or maybe they wanted to build up the myth of this demon. Maybe this demon doesn't really exist and they wanted to attribute these killings to it so that they could steal more glory. They've performed quests for the queen in the past, and of course they want the glory and the continued patronage, and so he's fumbling a little bit. He's like scrambling to come up with a motive for this. That it's clearly like he doesn't have a good reason why you did this. He just found you near the bodies. And eventually he kind of stumbles to a stop, and the king says, right, so it's Baron Leyen, right? And the most perceptive among you can see like a 16th of a smile. And the Baron's eyes grow dark, and he kind of gives him the Kubrick stare. He looks at him through his eyebrows. He says, Teeth, Leyen, Your Highness. We covered this in the first campaign, but Teeth Leyen, Teeth is a prefix that means like sub or under. So his house is actually started as like a minor house under House Leyen. So Teeth Leyen, just like Karstark from Game of Thrones. It's like the Starks, but worse. It's like half Leyen, like Leyen, but they're not important. And you're unclear what Teeth Leyen did in the past to earn like a barony of his own. But what he has is referred to as a petty barony, which is like the crown owed him a barony, so they carved out the crappiest piece of land they could find, and were like, this is what you're in charge of, because I have to give you something. And clearly he appointed him a right-hand advisor who is undercutting all of his scheming. And so, yeah, just the tiniest fragment of a smile spreads across the king's otherwise stoic face as he goes, right, Tieflayan. Everything you just said about the what you think their motives might be is actually speculation, which is inadmissible in a legal proceeding. It's also stupid. You haven't given me a sufficient reason. But us not knowing the motivation behind a crime doesn't mean the crime didn't happen, and obviously someone killed these men. So I'm going to have you sit back down, and I'm going to ask them what happened. Baron Tieflayan once again pouts and seethes in a corner, and he shoots you an accusatory glance. Yeah, it sounds like you guys send up William as your extremely charismatic representative in these legal matters. William, what is the core of your defense? You don't really know the legal proceedings, but it sounds like the king will tell you if, like, hey, that's character assassination and it's inadmissible, that kind of thing. So he just tells you to proceed, just plain common, what happened?
So I'm going to stand. I'm not going to boost my charisma at all yet. I'm going to give as true and accurate retelling of our story from the minute we got the writ from the queen, and I will hand that to somebody who can hand it to the king as well. Traveling through our journey, what our purpose was, and some of the evidence that we found, and maybe some of our own theories as to what we think could have been the case, but how it was clearly obvious that is speculation, and obviously we couldn't have possibly committed these atrocious crimes.
You could mention the demon markings, like the wounds.
Yeah, going through the tentacle sizes.
Like his own right hand, the Baron's own right hand.
Yeah. The king nods through all this, and he says, I do remember. I was in the... I was in this very audience hall when you met with my wife, the Queen Resenda, and when she sent you off, it's clear you couldn't have committed this crime yourself. Baron, what do you have? This sounds like pretty redemptive evidence. It sounds like they couldn't have committed this. What's is there anything else? Are there any details I'm missing, or is this an obvious dismissal? And the Baron looks furious at the king, which is not that justified, because the king is literally talking about like observable reality. He's like, I literally saw them 6 hours ago. Like it's a wild accusation, but the Baron looks almost betrayed, and he shakes his head at the king, and he says,
"Can I do a perception and see why it seems like the Baron is so angry about this? Like, is he actually getting betrayed? Like, was there a plot afoot amongst all the other plots that are afoot?"
He's angry all the time, but I'll allow you to make a roll because of your awareness of secrecy to see if there's another layer to what's going on here.
9. Oh, not rolling great today.
You're pretty sure he didn't expect the king to say that, but it's possible that it's not that he thought the king was going to be like, oh, well, it's irrefutable, they're guilty. And more like he thought the king was going to give him more polite consideration instead of throwing it back at him like, what are you talking about, man? It's possible the tone is what bothered him, not the content. And the Baron says, yes, your highness, I do have additional information to add. See, I don't believe these criminals committed these murders themselves. And King goes, character assassination to call them criminals before they're found guilty, but please go on. Uh, and Baron like clenches his teeth. It's worth noting, I mentioned your awareness of secrecy, Marigold. Albert's awareness of instinct has this guy's predator like vibes flaring like the sun. He just keeps getting angrier about this. And the Baron finally, or the Baron says, I don't believe these committed the murders themselves. I think they sent someone to do it. And I'm glad the tall one, he points to William, brought up the demon attack. You see, I think they sent a demon to do their work. The king rolls his eyes. He says, so you might not know this about this party, but I've met them a number of times. They've mostly dealt with my wife, admittedly, but I'm pretty sure where we're at with all the secrecy, what I know is druid, half angel person. Sorry to blow up your spot. You're crazy tall. It would be weird. It's either that or half giant, and I don't think you're broadly enough built for. I don't mean to like.
And to the face of the king, I just lift the halo.
the king raises an eyebrow like, impressive, like a JoJo character. No, he's like, all right, yeah, there you go. And also a blood mage, I believe. That one's a mage, inheritor, witch. LA's, yeah. It's nice to be remembered. And the king goes, yeah, so pretty much every kind of caster except for a warlock. So if you're insinuating that they are like interacting with demons a whole lot, I'm gonna need some evidence. And before he's even done with the word evidence, Baron Tieflane has pulled out a small device. It is a flat plate of stone, flat on the bottom, but then like domed. Other than that, and in its center, kind of held down by a string, is something that looks like a compass needle. And when the Baron like twists this needle and lets it unfurl, like unspin on the bottom, and holds it back up, the needle is holding itself up, like it's being bound to the stone by the needle. And the king goes, "Oh, right, we're doing it. Okay." After you, and he turns to your party to explain, sorry, I see this kind of thing pretty frequently. Mostly people accusing people of being blood mages, even though that's legal here for the most part, unless you're doing something. Well, you know that. You have a blood mage in your party. This is a Bane Finder. You might not have interacted with it before. You also may or may not know, because I know mages are kind of the information keepers for magic users, and so a lot of the information ends up not that well distributed, you know, for the benefit of those mages. Sorry, I don't mean to like say anything bad about your order, kid, but anyways, you may or may not know certain metals react in certain ways to otherworldly power, and so this little sliver of metal will point to a caster or otherworlder of a certain type. And the Baron nods and holds this thing up. You guys can see from here that the sliver of metal inside of it, it's already beginning to shake just a little bit. It glows with silvery gleam. And the Baron's the king says, "Please get in the line so that he could tell." It'll like point at you and shake a bunch, and like look like it's trying to pull away from you, but it'll be oriented towards you. It's a whole thing.
Is this like specifically oriented towards like demon activity specifically, or is it just any or other worlders at all?
The Baron answers this one. He says it's silver, so demons only. In fact, I'll prove it, because I know you're not the warlock. And he holds it up, and it does not react at all to William.
Sweet.
And he goes down the line, and he holds it to Elway, and it doesn't move. He holds it to Alberth, and it doesn't move. He holds it to Greyson, and it
Can I
doesn't
hit him with
move.
ectasis?
You
Oh,
stepped on my line.
sorry. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You can, but
It
when it
doesn't
gets to
move?
Grayson, it doesn't do anything. I mean, you don't actually know that Grayson is a warlock, so
Well, yeah, I guess
yeah.
that's true.
It
Yeah,
does
I
not.
wouldn't have done that then. I'm sorry.
It does not react to Grayson,
Let's go.
and he moves it over. And when he brings it to Merigold, it starts to shake and pull away from him. And the Baron grins and turns towards the king and
No.
says, "What did I tell you?"
Are we sure that's silver? Because he's a mage.
Yeah, he's
I'm
He's
really
both. Isn't your
confused.
friend two kinds of magic? Aren't two of your friends two kinds of magic? People can be two things.
Can we just make sure that this is a thing tuned to things? Just to make sure he is two
Okay.
things.
I have a thought. Is it because the demon secret has been bound to my compelling discretion?
Ooh. Maybe.
I'm gonna try
Wait.
to put on a bit of a performance as the busker that I am, and I'm gonna look at the king and show genuine confusion, but start to theorize. And I'm
Wait,
like,
wait. Question. Are you able to like proxy spellcast through another person using the demon secret to move the needle to someone else?
I might be able to if I cast a compelling discretion through my proxy on you.
Yeah, because that would just like obviously invalidate any results that this would show.
I would hope so, if they're scientists, you know. I'm gonna start to theorize, and I'm gonna say, I really am not a demon, but I do have a secret that is a powerful secret relating to demon lore, and I've bound that to one of my spells. That's the only reason I could think why anything demon related would ping me like this. I'm not a demon. I think there's something wrong with this device.
Can Grayson reach like into the back of his mind to communicate with the demon that's like riding on his shoulder all the time, sort of a thing?
Most warlocks can't, but your particular demon is very invested in your day-to-day and does frequently like talk to you. So yeah, absolutely. What are you asking?
Was that you?
Was what?
Like, why didn't it go off? Was that your doing, or am I just real lucky?
I wasn't paying attention to your shit. What happened?
Oh, no, you're good.
If I may, this Baron has a pre-existing grudge against me, and I demand to be tested by a second independent Bane aura detector.
The king furrows his brow. He says, having a grudge really isn't gonna affect the way the device works. Let me see that.
Oh,
And
I'm insinuating that he's tampered with the device to invalidate the result to make it look like I'm guilty.
oh, well, there's an easy way we can certify that. And he calls a scribe over, and he whispers something to the scribe, and the scribe like runs off to to get something or someone, and the king like gestures, and the Baron hands him the device, and the king looks at the bottom. When he holds it up to the light, you guys see part of the surface shimmers differently than the rest of it, in a shape of some rune that you don't recognize. And the king squints his eyes and looks at it, and he like runs a finger across it to like wipe any dust off. And he says, it holds the seal of the Metallurgists Guild. It's definitely an official Bane finder. I don't think it could have been tampered with in any way. And yeah, and now the right hand.
That still doesn't necessarily conclude like guilty of murder.
That's true.
No, it just means you're lying about whether you interact with demons on a regular basis. So, you know, I wouldn't find you guilty of murder based on that. Definitely put you in a dungeon until we figure something out. But let's just see what the representative comes back and says.
With that, actually, I want to know what's going on, but I really think the Baron is framing hard.
Is Alberth raising his hand in the audience chamber? The king kind of looks around and goes, yeah, little guy, what's on your mind?
Would it be too much to ask if you were to do that test real quick on my friend here?
Oh, sure, that seems reasonable to me. And then he narrows his eyes a little bit like, I am stepping within melee weapon distance. And then kind of shrugs it off because that's his general vibe.
Or one of your people.
Yeah, for sure. Geez, I think my vizier and my counselor are both gone. I go grab Peter Ullman, I guess.
Oh my god.
How many grudges do you guys have in high society? It doesn't matter. They hate new money. It's not about you. And he gestures to Albert specifically. He's like, I'm sure you've got a lot of personal grudges. They're just being petty bitches. It's fine.
Good to hear it from you, sir. Thank you.
And but no, he actually steps down himself and holds it up to each of you. Sure enough, it reacts to none of you except for Merigold.
When that happens,
I think he's testing for mages. He's got the mages Baynara in there.
That's what I was saying earlier. Come on, catch up.
It's a compass, right?
At this point, I'm convinced.
The thing is, that
must be true.
You don't even know the Mage Bane metal, though.
I don't.
So how does that normally work to test for mages? What does it use? Alcohol?
You'd have to have a separate Baynara tester, I guess.
Yeah, like a specific metal.
One that I think that he has, that he's somehow determined.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe if I don't know it, he's been motivated for revenge seeking for some time now, maybe? I don't know.
When it goes off again on Merigold, where is the Baron in relation to, like, I'm wondering if the Baron is like waiting for him to line up right next to Merigold and then getting in line behind and taking off his circlet to like flash because we're pretty much concerned we're pretty convinced that he's a warlock, right? Because of last campaign.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, he is. Okay. I guess Greyson still doesn't know. That's news to Tom.
True. The king goes, right. Okay. This boils down to, is this test being faked or not? Because if it's not, then this party is more pals with demons than I'm comfortable with. And I wouldn't find you guilty of murder based on that. There would be a whole investigation, and this guy would just not be involved with it. And the Baron goes, it's my barony. and the king goes, shut up, it's my kingdom. So, but until then, if this test is found to be, or if a secondary test confirms that your friend is a warlock, I'm afraid I'm just going to have to put you all in a dungeon for the time being until the investigation is over. I know that's not where you want to be. You want to be out killing demons. I want you to be out killing demons. But if there's a demon on your side, then that's going to make me question whether you're out there killing demons.
It's a very fun plot twist right now. I'm enjoying this.
I feel like this is super based. I'm kind of here for dungeon right now.
Yeah. Marigold's able to see, like, now the best course of action is to be cooperative with the king, since he seems to be a reasonable, level-headed fellow.
Yeah. And the king says, all right, in the interest of fairness and making sure that this test isn't tampered with, Baron, I'm going to have you leave the audience chamber. And the Baron, what? He's visibly shocked. He says, no, I'm the one accusing them. And the king goes, shut up. you're gonna go. Your attendants are gonna go. Your right hand, your left hand. I'm gonna be here with scribes, my guards, and the accused. We're gonna carry out the test with a different Banefinder, and if that's true, then they will be temporarily imprisoned, pending investigation. That seems
Also,
like the
there's
only
no
fair
way
way
that
to do
they-
this.
Yeah, there's no way that they could like plant a demon like magical item that would trigger this, right? Like we obviously have some artifacts that are linked to certain types of magic. Would a Banefinder be able to trigger on something like that?
Oh, actually, hold
That's
on.
a good question.
Can I use awareness of faults on that Banefinder that the Baron supplied? Is there anything
Ooh.
that awareness of faults gives on that?
It seems structurally sound. Yeah, it doesn't have any breaking points. It seems to be working as intended. But yeah, you don't get a strong sense of brokenness or like tampering from it. Like you would with like maybe a forged
And
document.
Secret is like, can I bind and unbind secret spells?
Yes, it there's sort of a cooldown on doing that as well. But if you take a minute or two, you could unbind the demon secret from.
And then just rebind it later when I need it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that. Just in case, you know.
Sweet. Yeah. You do that before this test. The Baron and his people start like marching out of the room as they're kicked out. A bunch of guards come around to you guys and are like, if we're closing off the audience chamber between you guys and the king, we're just gonna have to take all your weapons. I hope that's all right. Jewelry as well,
Yeah,
just because you guys are magic, and so we don't want you like. There have been reports of someone turning into a bear in the capital recently. Like we just want to remove any threats like that. So just put it in the bucket, and he does bring around like a pail for you guys all to put your weapons into. Do any of you keep your weapons?
No.
No, in fact, I'm thinking I'm gonna like take off as much as I can. Like I'm wondering if he did plant something on me. I don't know. Can I see if I feel like
Ribs.
there's anything?
Yeah, you take off all your gear. You don't feel anything that's like you don't normally have it on you or anything. Yeah, all your gear, weapons, several types of guns. Yeah. Lion is sitting. Lion mutters to herself as she's taking off like multiple layers of armor. Just goes like, "No one checked me for magic. Oh, sorry, no one checked me for magic. This is so unbelievable. You just found the one world. I would have turned up negative, but would have been nice to be checked. Everyone sees all the armor. There's no silver on it. No check." The king goes, I can check." Yeah.
Is this the first time we've seen Lion without armor?
Oh my. Sometimes I do a lot of world building a couple of weeks apart, and I forget about it. Lion's a rational person. She sees that there's no way to get out of this situation without taking off armor. And so she is very angry as she takes off all this armor. And you guys see, this is the first time you've seen her even without her helmet off. And rather than hair, she has layers and layers of what appear to be bright yellow flower petals, like cascading down her back.
Dope.
Yeah,
Huh.
yeah. And as her skin, like as it gets closer to her shoulders, she's basically wearing like a tank top underneath the layers of like chain and plate. And you guys can see as it gets up here, her skin becomes like a different texture that looks almost like bark, like tree bark.
Huh.
Is this something we're familiar with?
No. I don't think any of
Cool.
you have seen something like this, and she absolutely sulks in the corner. There's a lot of sulking going on, and Elway shrugs at her apologetically, like, sorry. You guys hear? as Yasika starts to wake up in the barrel,
Yeah.
and she realizes that people are like taking armor off of her, and she goes, "No, I challenge you. Fight me one-on-one, you dogs." She tumbles out of the handcart and like starts to slowly wake up. She goes,
Average Tuesday night for Marigold.
"What's up, guys? What's?" She goes, "How did what happened?
Yeah,
Was
you
I poisoned?"
pointed and yelled and passed out. I'd never seen anything like it.
Yeah, we're on trial for murder. Don't worry about it.
Oh, solar accusation. Who did I just give me a second. She goes and sits down. She looks around. She sees where you are, and she goes, "Did we get another quest?" Because you're in the audience chamber.
Kind
Anyways.
of.
Yeah. Okay. And an attendant brings her like a skin full of water. Just this is also the first time you've seen Yasika. I mean, she's taken her helmet off before, and she's not like hiding any physical abnormalities. She's just a tall woman. And she looks over at Lion and goes, "Oh, I'm sorry." Lion sulks. It's an extensive process getting this whole party unarmored and unarmed. And finally they seal it off. There's just a couple scribes taking notes, a couple guards, and the king has gone very, very quiet. And eventually, as everyone's out, he stands up, kind of cracks his neck, and runs his hand through his like very long beard. I mean, not super long. It's like just not against his face. It's very well kept. And everyone roll an insight check to see where the king's at.
Roll the 1. Nice.
16, let's go.
William rolled a 16. William is
And I've got
pretty...
I have an awareness of grace, so I'm able to tell like what kind of things he is.
That's true. Your awareness of grace tells you a lot about this man. The awareness of grace tells you what someone needs. Sometimes it's on a physical level if there's a pressing enough physical need, but most times it's on an emotional level. The first sense you get is that on a physical level, this dude needs to sleep. He has not been sleeping well recently. Now that you look at him closer, you can see that for appearance's sake, he's been using some kind of makeup to cover it, but just the slightest color difference shows you that he's covering bags under his eyes. You're not sure how long he's been.
Yeah, is sleep deprivation an ailment that I can heal?
Heal with what? Like just being
Like,
near him with Hearthlight Aura, or?
No, I have a healing spell, don't I?
Red Purpose, yeah. So you, it could help him. Yeah. You need to touch someone to do that. You're not sure you'd be allowed to in this context while you're on trial for murder.
Super fair.
Yeah, but the second need that you detect from this man is a need to know who's on his side. There must be a lot of shifting political allegiances or like secrets between the upper crust. It's clear that he is worried about something and isn't sure who he can trust. And it's very possible that hearing that one of his wife's go-to like get it done teams, one of his major like adventuring parties that he sends out on quests, might be like hiding some information, or even like hiding some nefarious information that might drastically affect the kingdom.
I would like to offer my services to heal, like quietly, if I could, offer services to heal the king, to give him a boost of energy if needed, if only to make this arguably tedious process of trial and the strain of it a little easier on him.
The king furrows his brow and he says, I definitely appreciate the offer. I'll swing by the Red Temple because I think that's a good suggestion. Very
Fair enough.
insightful, which any gestures to your halo, makes sense. I don't mean to stereotype. I guess the stereotype of being insightful is not like that bad a stereotype. Doesn't matter. Let's get into it. And he yeah. Finally, the person who he had sent the scribe out to gather has showed back up. They are in very formal looking, like deep red robes. And there's like a number of runes all across their like clothing, and like a weird floppy hat that they're wearing that's also made of a very red fabric. It's not quite as red as Alberth's jacket that's red, but it's close. And this guy is carrying like a small wooden box, and when he opens it, you see that there are 8 Banefinders inside of it. And the king nods, and he goes over to the guy and like holds the Banefinder up to him, and the guy goes, "Oh yes," and he inspects it, and he pulls out like a little magnifying glass and a second thing that is like 2 metal prongs that he taps against it, and it like vibrates weirdly, and he says, yes, I can certify that this is indeed an official Metallurgists Guild Banefinder. This if it was significantly tampered with, I think we would know. And the king goes, "Right, sweet." And he grabs the one with the silver needle from the box, and the metallurgist looks offended. He says, "I just told you that the one you were using is fine. It's perfect. It has not been tampered with." And the king goes, "Shut up." And the king heads over to you guys and goes, "All right, so we're in agreement. If you're a warlock, then you guys are just staying in the dungeons for a little while we finish an investigation. I'm asking you because I'd like you to go calmly, because even though we've taken your weapons, most of you, that's not really where the majority of your tool set comes in. So it's fine. They're nice dungeons. What am I talking about? That sounds insane. I'm pretty tired, man." So he goes down the line, and once again, William, no. Alberth, no. Greyson, yes. It starts to vibrate and pull back towards him, and he goes, "Oh, what the fuck?" And he takes like an involuntary step backwards. He goes, "You gotta be kidding me." And he thinks about it for a second, and he goes, "Oh." And he points at Merigold and he goes, "Oh, you're using proxy spellcasting to frame your friend now. Kind of seems like you could have picked someone else to frame. I don't know."
No, I'm like I've been drinking all day. I
did hear a rumor that you can't use proxy spellcasting to circumvent that.
Well, bring me a picture of your finest ale and test me again.
Wait, can't you just give like everybody a little bit of ale?
That's true.
Can I use awareness of grace on Grayson right now? See what his emotions are doing.
Yeah, what do you think Alberth finds, Grayson?
A pretty decent amount of panic and also confusion.
Okay, I would expect that, I think.
Okay, the king says, and foolhardily just yeets the Banefinder back to the metallurgist, who snap fumbles with it in the air.
Because I think
Shut up.
Okay, sure.
You're all going to the dungeon while
What?
I ask the royal mages how you can pass around spells, how you can do that. It's possible you're being framed, so in another couple days, we'll just test you all again. Well out of the Baron's influence, we'll be able to figure out what's going on, but I cannot possibly let you leave at this point. I'm willing to believe that none of you are warlocks, but someone is. And boy, I hope
Thanks.
it's not you.
Your
Guards.
Grace, if I may, I am in agreement, and we shall go without further argument to the dungeons. However, I would say that we were dispatched by your wife on a matter of some urgency with respect to Pater Ullman. I'm happy to sit in the dungeon to cool this down for a few weeks, but I would plead with you to also keep an eye on Pater Ullman, have him watched, because he is planning to overthrow your government.
Okay, will do. Never liked that guy. Thanks for the tip. And then the guards come in and they don't handcuff you unless you guys try to escape, but they start to escort you to different jail cells.
I'll offer to be
In the dungeons. No, that's not. Is
All
that
right,
a-
no worries. I'll just like walk off.
Okay. Yeah, and unless you guys try to stage an escape or keep any particular item, like smuggle it in, you guys are sent off to the dungeons, which have been aligned with various
Grace,
materials.
Grayson needs to smuggle in the ring he stole like an hour ago. Probably doesn't want that on it, like, to be discovered by, the people thinking he's a warlock. That's gonna come back and bite him.
You saw my bullet point in this session's notes coming. Please make one last roll for the session, some kind of sleight of hand roll to see if you can get this ring that you stole from a corpse who you're being accused of killing. See if you can get that, like, into the bucket like they took it away, or into the pocket of a guard or something. Roll just
Swallow
like
it.
what I'm
Swallow
gonna
it.
call an improvised check.
You'll
Man.
All right.
gaze.
Do I have a point of inspiration or whatever left? I don't remember how many I used last
Let's
game.
just
I
say
think I just
yes.
used one.
I think you got one left. I think that sounds right.
All right. It's advantage, right?
Yes.
Hallelujah.
Let's go.
With a 19, you
Yay!
see that you guys are like going to be changed into like essentially prison uniforms that are just very plain clothes. It's clear that they have different clothes and dungeons for nobility and common folk, which is kind of standard practice. But in an act of royal mercy, the king just goes ahead and considers you all nobility for this particular arrest, and so you guys all head to the nice dungeons with the comfy clothes that aren't like burlappy, and you probably won't be expected to do regular physical labor. What?
As we're heading out, I'm going to say, just so you know, if I were going to frame someone, I would not frame Grayson. I would have framed the Baron.
He has a really cool circlet that you guys might also want to check out. Just throwing it out there.
Oh, that's yeah. I'll definitely check that out. Yeah. Okay, we'll look into that. Says the king, and Lion just goes, just glad you wouldn't frame me. And as the king is walking away, he goes, still got questions. And Lion goes, yeah, and you guys are escorted to jail cells. Tune in next time for escape, espionage, plans for sitting quietly while the investigation is finished and hoping that the Baron doesn't exert his nefarious influence to have you further framed. Find out next time on The Fiction Game. Thank you, players, for playing. Thank you, viewers, for viewing. And we'll see you next time. Bye.